So do your feather sticks look like this, or do they maybe look a little bit more like that, or like that? I made all three of these, and the big difference between them was wood selection and knife selection. So I just want to dig into what I think makes a better feather stick. I recently heard a friend say that he can't make feather sticks, and without even seeing his process, just by looking at his knife, I had a pretty good idea what his problem was. And so I wanted to just dig into what I think are the top 10 tips for making better feather sticks. And so just to make sure that I wasn't being a little bit biased in my own experience, I just made 50 feather sticks in a row from various wood species, various knife grinds, various thicknesses of stock to start from. And I took a bunch of notes and I compiled them down into what I think makes the most important principles to make a better feather stick. And if you don't know what a feather stick is, it's simply a way of getting kindling wood when the wood is wet and you need to get down into dry wood, or if you just want to make a fire burn up really quickly, making these feather sticks take flame real quick and get you a nice big fire going fast. So they're a skill worth knowing. So let's dig into what I think are the top 10 tips for making better feather sticks. Alright, the most important thing to making good feather sticks is your wood selection. You need to make sure you've got nice straight grain wood without any knots in it. As soon as you got all these little branches and knots, your knife's going to hit that and just get stuck, and you're just not going to have much success. So generally you want to get nicer big stalks of wood like firewood and split it up, and then look for nice straight grain sections. You can find skinnier little branches or saplings in the woods that are dead standing that just grew up quickly and didn't have a lot of branches, and they can work, and that's often what you're working with when you're camping. But if you've got a choice, no knots, straight grain, that's what you're looking for. The next most important thing is you want a Scandi grind on your blade. This helps you have a nice kind of flat anchor point to rest against the wood, as well as allows the wood to curl. Nice curl like that. If you try to use like a flatter, thinner blade, what happens is the wood just get the other way. It doesn't curl. That's what produced this feather stick. You get nice deep cuts, and it cuts through the wood very quickly, but you don't get the nice curls that you did. So that's a Scandi grind blade, and that is this thinner flat blade. And then the convex blades, they just kind of chatter around. You can, if you're really good, make nice feather sticks, but I find that the blade's doing this a little too much, and it's just harder to keep consistent. You might get a nice shaving and then it just kind of pops off. So I highly recommend the Scandi grind blade, which is most common for bushcraft style blades. Tip number 3 is wood selection. This makes a huge difference. The softer woods, like white pine I'm using here, probably spruce, other pines, they're going to be easier for you to cut into with your knife, and definitely be a great place to start. They also start on fire really quickly and burn really quickly, so they make great feather sticks. The only downside to these is that the curls sometimes don't hold as well, and they kind of maybe break off, or they're a little bit more brittle. So that is going to vary from species to species. You could probably get some really nice slow growth yellow pines that are probably going to make great feather sticks, but from the white pine I had, great, easy to cut, but again, they don't hold a curl quite like the birch. The birch was my favorite. This is a white birch, and I felt like it was just the right amount of force to cut easily enough and still held the curl really nice, and allowed me to make much nice thinner, tighter curls. As soon as I went into harder woods like walnut, cherry, ash, the wood just becomes much harder to cut. Now if it's green, like I use for spoon carving, you can make really beautiful curls, but as soon as it's really dry, like we're using for firewood, it just becomes a lot more force and a lot more work than it's worth. So when it comes to using hardwoods, if I'm in a situation where that's all I have, I probably am more likely to just scrape with the back of my knife and make a pile of shavings like that, and use those to get my fire started rather than making feather sticks, and then just batoning and splitting the wood up into nice finger thick and smaller pieces of wood rather than doing the feather sticks. When it comes to the shape of your kindling to start, about 2 fingers by a thumb seems to be about perfect. It doesn't really need to be much longer than that. You kind of just wasted energy at that point, and any shorter and you just get less of a feather stick, but that seems to be about perfect. Elbow to fingertip, and then 2 fingers by a thumb. And if it does taper slightly, then I would say put your handle on the thicker side, and then as you work your way up, you're getting to more thicker wood so you don't have the little weak spots in the middle. So when it comes to grip, you can put it on a stump and just push it down, or you can do it up in the air freehand. And I find the combination of both pushing and pulling works best, but I would say 80% of my energy is being used by the arm holding the wood, pulling the wood, and this one's for the most part locked off, and more or less just controlling the ridges and controlling a slicing motion. With each pass of the knife, we're shaving off the ridge that was made by the pass before it. Every time you cut, you get a ridge on both sides of that cut, and I tend to work myself all the way around to one side, and then I work myself back, shaving off the ridge each time, whatever the high point is. Sometimes I'll double back if it's a high one. The angle of your knife plays a huge factor. So by going square, you get kind of a square curl. But by angling your knife, you see how the curl starts to spiral outwards. And that's great because it helps get the wood out of your way so it's not just all stacking up down here at the bottom. So that's one of the ones I have a problem trying to remember to do, is keeping that proper angle of the knife to curl the feathers away. So tip number 8 is to roll your knife over at the end. This helps fold the curl out, making more room for your curls to pile up. Something I often forget to do as well, but it does make a difference when I remember to do it. Number 9, using the whole blade of the knife. A slicing action works better than just a straight push. When your blade's moving across the wood, it's going to cut better than if you're just trying to push straight through it. So we're using the whole blade. We're looking for the ridges. We got our blade at an angle. We're folding it over at the end. Those are some key tips there. Another good tip is that as soon as you get the piece of kindling in your hand, just go around and shave off all the corners and be aware of which ones shave the nicest. This does 3 things for you. 1, it just gets rid of all the rough edges that would hurt your hand or a little discomfort in your hand when you're gripping it, so you get nice round edges to work with. But it also gives you some clues on the grain direction of the wood. All wood will have grain running through it, and you're better off if you're working with the grain than against it. So the other thing that this does is gives you a nice smooth surface to work with. When you chop wood and split it up, you're often going to get rough edges, and there's just no way you're going to get a nice tight curl from chattered wood. So now you got a nice smooth plane to start with, and you also got some clues on the grain direction. So here I think I'm going against the grain a little bit. It's wanting to break up. So let's just see if it's any better on this side. See how that's cutting a lot smoother? You're not hearing that chattery as much, it's just kind of a smooth cut. So that means that's a better side to make my feather sticks on than that side. As a little bonus challenge here, I encourage you to try to make very light, thin shavings as you get further up your stick. So light that you could catch those on fire with a spark. And those smaller ones will light the bigger ones and give you a great flame. Morris Kohansky said that a great feather stick should be able to burn the stalk in half before the shavings burn up. So let's see if we can do that with this one here and put it to the test. I just noticed that I'm mostly using my knife hand now. I suppose that comes down to how delicate of a cut I need to make. When I'm making aggressive cuts, I'm using more of this hand, and as I get into the finer cuts, I've got more control if I'm just using the knife hand. I'm bracing the wood against my stomach here. Alright, we're down to the last little bit. I'm just going to try to get the thinnest cuts I can. Barely putting any pressure on the knife now. Just almost letting it glide across the wood. Light grip. Okay, let's see if we can't get this guy to burn in half before the feathers burn up. Let's give it a try. There we go. Burnt in half before the feathers burnt up. Guess I passed the test. Hope that helps some of you. Let me know if it does, and if I missed anything, don't be afraid to put it in the comments.